Welcome, everybody, to our show. My name is Jonathan Tripp. I want to say thank you guys for being here, especially if you're watching us live from Fire Talk. We do broadcast from Fire Talk, but we broadcast out over a bunch of other platforms for our show. Today, we're going to be talking about how to make Pinterest useless for your business. That's right, you heard it correctly. And some people, I know you've already been sending me messages or, chatting up the rumor mill. This is clickbait. So is the title clickbait? Let me know. I don't think it's necessarily clickbait, but I do think it's a really important topic, and I do try to have fun with the titles. But today, yes, we are going to be talking about Pinterest and how to make it useless for your business. So, but first, I want to encourage you, if you have not yet, please sign up for our social email community, and that's over at jonathantripp.com/better social. That's actually also a place you can watch the show live, as when we're live on YouTube and things like this, which is, if you're watching this, you're probably watching it and know that it's also there. So, but I want to say thank you for everybody that's here. And I would encourage you, please do me a favor and share this out on Twitter. Make sure you make sure the hashtag JTrippLive is in the tweet so that I can follow you and I can say thank you for tweeting this out. I appreciate it. So for everybody here that is watching us live, let's get started. I apologize if this is if you guys are kind of coming in a couple minutes late, but I think it's kind of cool to be able to see everybody here. So I'm going to do my best, because you know what, I've learned now, I've been doing these shows, and I think we're over. I'm sure we're over 200 now. I've learned to do notes. The only problem with notes are when you lose them, they're gone. And when you rely on them, they're not there. That's my problem as a broadcaster. But I try to have a couple of redundancies. But I do want to go down through, and I do want to talk about a bunch of these. So, and we'll kind of go in no necessarily particular order. But how many of you guys, I'm just going to ask, for those of you guys that are watching us, if you watch us live, whether it's on YouTube or whatever the case is, let's see here. If you're watching us live, how many of you guys have a Pinterest page, either for your personal business, something you just, well, do you have a Pinterest page in general? Okay, cool. All right, so I see a bunch of you guys do. How many of you guys actually use that Pinterest page? Renee, I know you do. Lindsay, okay, good. Renee, Ross, I see you guys. Okay, rarely. Okay, very little. Okay, Lindsay says every day she uses it. And by the way, I am glad to see you over there. Oh, Wendy, thanks for joining us. Rhonda, Eileen. If I miss somebody, I apologize. I didn't mean to miss you guys. So you guys are okay. So not as much anymore. Okay, so here's a couple of things, right? If you have a Pinterest page and you don't use it, well, then you don't expect to get much out of it. Okay? Now, how many of you guys have blogs, or you do some type of a blogging activity? Okay? A bunch of you guys do. I know this for a fact. David, you don't count. I know you don't. I do have a blog, but I do more of like video blogging. I use other social platforms because I like to use social. But I do have a home website, and when I post things, I don't always get immediate traction. I don't always get immediate comments and likes and shares and all that kind of stuff. I really don't. What I do get is I do get passersby. I do get people that watch occasionally. Some people will put some comments in, but usually most of my content, most of my engagement happens live, which is why I love doing live stream, because I know you guys are right there. Now, the vast majority of bloggers, they do not exist that way, because one, that's not how search results are gathered. Okay, search results when it comes to blogs are typically, I mean, there's a little bit of a lag, but it's not like a tweet where they have like, what is it, like an 8-minute half-life or something like that, 16-minute half-life, right? It's very quick. When it comes to blogs, you write the blog for the long game, your long game here, okay? And that's how I want you to start thinking about Pinterest. In much like in much like when you write a blog and you put it out there, you do all the things right. You make sure the picture's right. You make sure the content is well written. You make sure the links work and that you've done proper permissions and all those kinds of things. You've done the previews right. And you make sure that it's tagged and linked within your web. All those different things that you do for your blog, or that you're supposed to be doing for your blog, you need to also do that for your pins. Now here's where I'm going to go with this, because a bunch of you are saying, nope, I'm out. I can't use it. This is where I'm going with this, right? When you pin in Pinterest, and you're going to hear the word pin a lot, pin, pinner, Pinterest, okay? You're playing the long game, okay? There are many, many, many times, and I've run a bunch of different, more on the organic side of Pinterest strategies for businesses that take weeks to gather the interest until somebody sees them, because the way the Pinterest, they do have algorithms, and yes, Pinterest does index well, that it sometimes takes, and some of them have taken, I don't know, like 30 weeks, but all of a sudden you'll see the uptake, the engagement, the repins, sometimes even comments or things like this. You get more of these engagements and things like this, and all of a sudden it kind of hits like a point where the pin has been out long enough, or you've been active long enough where people are starting to follow you, and whatever the combination of sequences goes, it becomes a really popular thing. So, but see, that's not what we're talking about. How to make Pinterest useless for your business. Yeah, social media is a long game. Okay, how to make it useless. I want to give you my best tips on how to not use Pinterest, other than just not logging in. But I want to teach you and show you how you can use it as a business and just work really hard at it and really get no results in the short or the long run. So, are you ready? All right. Now, don't go. I'm just going to say as a disclaimer, please don't go out and do this. This is actually an instructional to help you to avoid these mistakes. So please don't do that. Don't go out and do these things. Just kind of avoid it, okay? The first one is Pinterest is only for women, okay? Don't do this at home, right? Or as a professional, don't try this at home. That's right, you guys got it. Pinterest is only for women. I want you to say it. You can either say it out loud or say it. Pinterest is only for, and even better yet, middle-aged women. I don't even know what that really means, but it's a stereotype. It's complete and total lie. It's absolutely a lie. old women rule. Again, I can't. I'm not even, Wendy. I'm not even going to get into that. Okay, so here's the thing, right? What we do know is that there's actively 100 million monthly users on Pinterest. Okay, that, if anything, is it the biggest? No, no. And you know what? You don't need to go after the biggest market. I mean, we've talked about Facebook and how that's going. Facebook Live. We've talked about how Twitter's up and down, and how Instagram is now like crossing like a 500 million users. All that kind of stuff. You don't need 500 million users in order to create an audience, guys. It helps, but you don't need it. 100 million, trust me, there's plenty in there. My whole point really is this, okay? There are so many people on Pinterest, and the people that are typically on Pinterest that are users, that are actively using it, they're more dedicated. They're going to Pinterest, and just even with a show of hands, and by the way, welcome to everybody that just joined. I'm so glad you guys are there, or here rather. How many of you guys go to Pinterest, not that you're pinning, but you go to Pinterest to find your recipe? You go to Pinterest to find like a how-to project or something like that, other than just like browsing like you would on Facebook or Instagram. You're going to it as a resource, like a search tool, kind of how I go and I use YouTube, right? I use Pinterest daily, Rhonda says. Recipes, gardening advice. Exactly. And to be honest, that's how most people use Pinterest. And that's super cool. But not for business. And that's okay, because that's how most people are using it. Like So I mean, I look up recipes, I'll look up gardening stuff, I'll look up like how to fix something, or just kind of creative things to do, right? And what we're finding then now is that Pinterest is not just for women looking for just those things, it's including men. As a matter of fact, it's been a huge uptake in the male subscribership and how dedicated those men are in using the platform. And why that's important is because oftentimes when we come up with our ideal client avatar, or our target audience, we kind of we split it into men and women, and age demographics and backgrounds and educate and all those kinds of things. I'm here to tell you that your demographic is on Pinterest. It's there. That includes men and women, young and old. Okay, it does. You're not really limited. So there's an audience there. So that's really kind of the first thing. I just wanted to dispel the myth, the complete myth, it's malarkey that Pinterest is only for women, because it's not. You can do some really cool things. All right. The other one that I want to talk about, another one that I want to talk about is, and we get into this as you get to be using Pinterest more and more. And by the way, it is really great to see everybody here. And I'll ask again, if you guys haven't already, please feel free to share it out. Because I do want to follow up on a couple of things. I want to see some things that are going to be happening here. But when it comes to pinning, one of the biggest problems that I see is the pinning. I'm going to just put it in the general pinning schedule. Okay, when to pin, how much to pin, and things like this. And we'll talk about the when to pin in just a minute. But how much to pin? How much content do you post to your account? And there is a threshold. I know some people that they absolutely go nuts. They are pinning, whether it's using a schedule or if they manually pin them. They're going nuts, and they're pinning 100 pins a day. That is ridiculous. I know some people that if they see that many pins coming from an account, just even throughout the day, it floods their feed, their Pinterest feed, and they will unfollow. Now, I don't think that's everybody. I think they just scroll faster, because I see less and less people are using it as a like a browsing tool. I see a lot of people will search for a particular topic. Like I've come to, I want to know how to make something out of a palette, or what can I do with wine corks, or how to make red Russian kale grow, whatever the case is, like whatever your thing is. And that gets into marketing, social media, and all those kinds of things. It gets in that too. But I've read a couple of studies that say, once there is a threshold, and the number that they've kind of played around with is about 50. Okay, don't go over 50. And I know some of you are going like, that's not a problem. Some people do. Some people, they have it auto pinned, auto generated, auto whatever. They have it 50 a day. That's right. Don't go over it. And the reason why, it's not that you can't, but what they're finding is that after 50, the engagement rate significantly drops, or it either stays the same. It's kind of like peaks out, but after 50, it definitely goes down. And again, this is not, most people don't have to worry about this, but some people think that if enough is good, more is better, and they apply that to their social media strategy, which, by the way, is a horrible idea, guys. But if you do 50 pins a day, you have totally maxed out, and I guarantee you're going to start seeing suffering in your engagement, in the pins and things like this. And then, so if you have been, don't worry about it, just stop. Some people then will, let's talk about if you pin and you do a lot of it, and you're not seeing the engagement because you pin a lot, they think, oh, well, I'll just go back and I'll delete the old pins, because obviously nobody wants to see that, and that's not a good, don't do that. Guys, remember that Pinterest is a long game. So if you're over pinning, reduce it, bring it down to a manageable level that people, give them a chance. It's like an avalanche of info. Bring it down, make it super specific, okay? But let them stay. Let those pins stay on your account. Make sure that you've set up your boards and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we can talk about that either during or maybe after the show. But let them stay, because this is where you make a pin. It will take a while for it to show up in the feed, where it becomes more relevant, where it becomes more trusted, where it becomes, through the algorithm. All right. Do people, and Jen, you say, do people use Pinterest to find news articles, not timely ones, but more like reference? They can. I mean, I don't know a specific statistic on that, but I would imagine that if it's a searchable topic, if it's more of an informational how-to DIY reference, not a trending current news, unless that's everything that you do and you're constantly going, I would say probably people don't necessarily use Pinterest for that as much as they would use it for other content. So we've talked about, okay, the number of pinning, deleting pins, that doesn't help. As a matter of fact, if you go back through and you delete the pins that don't have engagement, it really is effectively like having just a few, like however many pins you have left over. It really actually doesn't give your Pinterest account a chance for people to find it and to see that you've pinned and that you're an active pinner and that you're pinning very similar content and all that sort of thing. So you're kind of deleting your backstory when you take out those unengaged pins, because sometimes it does take one or two influencers or somebody that maybe has a following to see your pin, repin it, and that's where you start to get more engagement, because people are, oh, look, this person pinned this and it's interesting. So, hey, Melissa, it's great to see you. I want to talk also about scheduling and schedulers. Okay. Now, how many of you guys know that that there are scheduling tools for Pinterest? How many of you guys know that there are actually scheduling tools, legitimate? I'm not talking like Black Hat or like weirdo ones. I'm talking about actual, they're called marketing developer partners. Okay, let's assume I know nothing. Okay, right? There are a couple out there, and I really only want to kind of talk about two, in terms of, because they're the most mainstream. Okay, and the first one, can I find the link? It's the Tailwind app. How many of you guys are? Yep, Tailwind. Yep. I like that. I kind of come and go with it. I saw it when it was first coming out. I've looked at it kind of recently in the last couple of months. I love the analytics that they have. Ross, that's a good question. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I like the layout. I like the interaction. That if you're a marketer and you're serious and you really want to use, that's a really good app to use. It's a web app, but it's Tailwind app. Because it really gives you some really deep interaction. Even on the paid account, right? Okay, Eileen, it's good. All right, and that's okay. That's a good reason. Now, let's talk about the other one that I would say legit, and that's got some beef behind it, and that's Buffer. Okay, how many of you guys know about Buffer? Have you heard of Buffer? I'm sure a bunch of you guys have. Buffer, again, it does the same thing that it does with the others. It's a schedule, and they optimize it. They don't quite give you the same detail and integration that the Tailwind app does, but it's a really good scheduler. Okay, I wish I could post to Instagram from my desktop. Yes, yeah, and I'm sure there's a reason, Rhonda, why they don't allow you to do that for Instagram. But with Pinterest, they want you to. They encourage you. They're making it so easy to pin anywhere and everywhere. So what's one of the things that I was really excited to see was that there are really good ways to use schedulers. But that there are schedulers, but there are really good ways to use them. One of the things I want to encourage people, don't like a lot of other platforms, there's good times to post and bad times to post and things. With Pinterest, I think that is so much less of a thing you have to navigate. Don't worry about that so much, to the point where if you're using the Buffer app, it's okay. It's going to use a little bit of, well, when are people seeing it? But remember, that's kind of like trying to post a blog to your website at the time when you think that people are going to be watching. Sometimes you need to create the content and create the following so that when you post, people will come. Okay, it's not the other way around. It's people are coming, so then you know when to post. It's the other way around. So I want to encourage you, don't concern yourself so much with when to post, although I will say this, post when you think that people are going to be watching. So if your demographic, if your ideal client is almost like a mirror image of you, then when do you want to go on and post? When do you want to go on and look? Well, then that maybe is a really great way to post. That's a really great time to go in and go, that's when I want to go. And so anyway, I want to say hi to everybody that's kind of joined us live here. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention to all of the all of everybody everywhere, but I want to say hi to Tim. Good to see you, man. So the scheduling, don't worry so much about the time of day, or is 7 o'clock better than 9 o'clock? No, put it out when you think that people are watching. So, if it's stay-at-home moms, I know when we were running some different campaigns and things like this, we found that there were 3 upticks for that particular demographic, and it coincided almost exactly when nap times were. It was unreal. When I saw it, and at first I didn't understand what it was, but then it clicked, and I figured out why, and it made perfect sense. So so post when you believe that your audience is, and you can always play around with it. It's not like, once you've posted, you always have to post at the same time. Post throughout the day and see which ones are getting more engagement. Okay. So we talked about schedulers, when to schedule. Another one, this is a really good one. When we talk about what to pin, and let's go back and we'll talk with what Ross asked the question, how many boards is too many? I have an opinion, and not everybody agrees with me. It's not more the merrier. It's the more specific, the better. Okay, and here's where I'm going to say with this. Okay, that means we're going to make a couple of assumptions that you do have a really good cover, some cover art, something that's catchy, that's eye appealing, that you can see you have a good idea of what the Pinterest board is about. Okay, the title is really, it has that keyword in it, so that as people search it, they're able to see it, read it, and as well as it can be found. Having a description that's very descriptive. I don't want to say. So if I'm doing a board about coffee mugs, let's just do coffee mugs, and all I write in there is my coffee mugs, it's not good. That's not good enough. You can do much better. It could be my coffee mugs I've collected from listeners on my show. I love how maybe like a variety of coffee mugs that I get to enjoy my morning coffee with. Make a really good description that includes the keywords that you want to associate that will draw people in, because as they're doing searches, you want people to be able to personally interact, and they catch it. Okay, so use that. Now, how many boards depends on how many topics you want to talk about. I've done this as if you're just getting started, I might suggest this. Okay, if you're going to do a gardening, let's just use gardening as an example, right? You can start one board about gardening. Call it, whatever you want to call it, and you start putting everything in there. Okay, and you start getting followers, and that they're able to see. Well, at some point, you may want to then, if you have no followers, you can do one of two ways. One strategy is you put everything into one board, and then you split it out after a little bit, after you get some traction in there. Then you split it out and you make the boards, you move the pins. Another way, and this is usually if you're a business, come up with all of the categories that you do want to talk about. Make those boards very specific. Complete them out, and it does take time. To the point where, that's a service that I've actually offered, and I put on the table of saying, look, there are times where businesses don't have time to make Pinterest boards and they need one. That's a service that can be provided. I'm trying to think how many. You have 89 boards, Ross. Excellent. On one of mine, how many boards do I have? I have 14 boards on the one account. And on somebody else you have 4. Wow. I have 52 boards. Now, with and on the one account, let's see here on the Jonathan Tripp one, I have 14 boards. I'm following quite a few people, like 600 some odd people, and this is a passive traffic driver for me. I'm not an active Pinterest mainly because I want to focus on YouTube and live streaming. That's where I like to be. I also love Instagram. So I really kind of made a couple of decisions, but I did take some time. I set the account up, and I have a couple of things that automatically go in that help me keep my Pinterest boards fresh and things like this, right? And 4,800 pins. That's quite amazing, actually, Lindsay. You have a problem. You need to contact me, and we'll talk. Okay, that is a lot of pins. But for the most people, they don't have time to do that many pins, even however long. But when it comes to the setting up the boards, I say this is it kind of goes back to a lot of the way that I say you step back, decide what you want to talk about. What do you want to pin about? You can be really specific. That's one of the really nice things about Pinterest. You can be really specific, and because people will follow either you or your board specifically. So when you put in really great content into a board that's just about that topic, it's a win for both you and for that new follower. Okay. Now, one of the big things we've talked about, or that a lot of people talk about, are hashtags. Hashtag strategy on Pinterest, okay? And I want to explain this because this has kind of changed over the years with Pinterest. But I'm gonna cut right to it. Pinterest does not use hashtags the same way that Twitter and Instagram do. Okay, they use a search algorithm in the description, yes, but it's not based on hashtags. So you do not have to put in 30 hashtags into your description in order for it to be relevant. You write a good description, that's actually what they search for. Now, is it okay to put a hashtag in? Yes. Keep it maybe 1 or 2 at the most. You can do it with your brand. You can do it with, like, if I could do it with, like, mugshot, or have something like that, or JTrip Live would be, something, so that I have a hashtag for that thing, so that if somebody was to look it up, it does tie those things together. But I think there's much better ways to do it, and it just comes out like, as in write a really good description. But the bottom line is, and the more detail in it is this, that you do not have to worry about your hashtag sets within Pinterest the same that you do with Instagram or Twitter or what have you. It doesn't work the same way, so don't do it. Let's see here. What are a couple others? We talk about. We talked about boards. How many of you guys are aware of that you can invite other users to pin on your board? It's called group boards. There's a pro and a con, and it really's got to fit your strategy. I tend to shy away from them personally. One, because they do. That means that if I've seen this, and I have to check on it to see if it's still actively a concern. That if you're tied in with a board and something gets pinned, that's offensive. I don't remember. It used to be that you could receive negative consequences. I'm not sure if that's still the same way, but I do know this, that when you are on a group board and and a lot of stuff gets pinned on the group board, it tends to clog up your feed if you're looking for things. What you want within a group board is to have really relevant content. Stop just repinning the repins that are repins. Find fresh content, put it in. I think the last statistic I heard was 80% of Pinterest are repins, and less than 20% actually are new pins from websites. Not direct uploads, but new pins from websites. That's a really big ratio. And I want to encourage you as pinners, as Pinterest users, find content and then just pin it. If you work in Chrome or something like that, they actually make and I have one on my browser, that I can literally, if I'm on a website, I could just click the little Pinterest icon and it will just set the pin up, and I just choose which one, and it's so much easier. Eileen, with 11,000 pins, I would expect that you use some amount or some degree of like those kinds of tools. But group boards are they're good ways. I don't think that that they're the way that they used to be able to use them and kind of game the system, where you would have other people pinning and it would show up because you're with that, it shows up with in your followers feeds, and you get better, more interaction. That's kind of gaming the system. They don't do that anymore. They've changed some of their algorithms in what's called a smart feed, and I can give you let me see, do I have that link? Yeah, actually, this is I do have that link. I'm going to put that in our group here in our show. This is a blog post by the Tailwind app, talking a little bit more about Smart Feed, which is their version for like the Pinterest algorithm, and it's a really good article. I like the way that it's put together. But I just wanted to drop that link so you guys can follow that over and read that as you. Who knows? Maybe you need to pin that. Group boards. Pinterest is not unlike the others, and this is I want to talk about this. And let's talk about real quick. We'll talk about paid traffic in just a minute. I want to talk about how important are follower to following ratios with numbers, and I'm going to say it has less to do with the ratio. I know, like on Instagram, you don't like to see where they literally follow every single person that follows them. That's a little when you start to see that, honestly, if you see somebody following 7,500 people, you probably know they're actually not interacting with 7,500 people. On Twitter, if you see they're following 500,000 people and have 500,000, they're definitely not interacting with 500,000. It doesn't necessarily mean, Donna, that they're spammers. It just means that I don't think that their engagement is what you would expect. And by the way, good morning. It's good to see you, Donna. But when it comes to, I don't look at Pinterest, the follower to following ratios, as they're automatically a spammer. I would just look at it in terms of what expect. And on Pinterest, because it's not a social platform the same way that, say, Twitter or something like that, or even like Facebook fan page, it's not the same. And it's not. Most of the users, they don't use it like that. So don't expect to get that out. I put a lot less stock. So if I see somebody following 17,000 people, and they have like 17,000 followers, that I don't break a sweat. I'm not like, well, I just wonder if they have quality. I mean, I'll look at their pins, but I'm not wondering if I'm going to ever get a pin from them. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff with Pinterest. So I'm going to say don't worry about it. So kind of moving on to the pay for traffic. Do you have to pay for traffic? And yes, you do. You get a much bigger. You can get really specific. You have some really great results when it comes to paid traffic, but it's as of right now, as of the airing of this show in mid 2016, you don't have to pay in order to get traffic. Eileen, I'm sure you do, and I can tell you on another couple of accounts that we have, that not with Eileen, that I have and I run, we get a fair amount of traffic just because of we have about 2,000. We have about 2,000 pins, but because we have about 17, almost 18,000 followers, there is you just get a sheer amount of traffic because of it. But again, it's just like the pay to play model on any social media platform. Yes, you do get a higher degree of interaction. You tend to get more specific people because you're tailoring your ad sets, your campaigns to meet those, to interact and meet those people. So it just kind of goes to say, but that doesn't mean that you have to in order to. And I'd be interested, does anybody here that's watching us live, does anybody run ads on Pinterest? You can, but I'm just wondering, does anybody run ads? Renee, you did. Okay. And see, Renee, with what your business is, that makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And Donna, to kind of get back to your 600,000 followers, do you think they paid? Hopefully, they didn't pay for the followers, which I would never say don't do. Just really, just in general, for everybody here that I could say, don't pay for a follower on Twitter or on Pinterest. Don't do it. But I would say this: run an ad set where you can capture, you gather followers, but that you capture their information so that they can be, so you can interact with them on a regular basis. I would say that. I'm kind of reading down through the comments here. Okay, so you place ads and things like this, and it is possible. I think right now, and I want to look a little bit more into this on the numbers data side of it. But from what I understand is that Pinterest is actually one of the cheapest platforms right now for paid traffic, for advertisement to get traffic. Okay, it's one of the cheapest out there. I do want to look at some of the data and see how that's working out, but I think that's a true and legit thing. Let me see if there was a couple of, because I want to make sure that I had really kind of talked through a good handful of these, these. Not myths, but the way we use Pinterest that really actually doesn't serve our business. And if I was to kind of go down through this, I would say, one, if you think it's for middle-aged women only, you're wrong. The male demographic and as well as the age demographic is actually changing, and it is growing, particularly on the male side, significantly. It's a platform to consider. You can go into fashion. You can get into projects and things like this. It can be informational articles. I mean, there are lots of different ways that men interact on that platform on a very, very regular basis. And there is one more thing I want to talk about. I know we talked about hashtags and things like that. Using hashtags Pinterest does not use hashtags the same way that Pinterest and Twitter do. Use one, but write a really good description instead. Don't just rely on a set of hashtags to try to gain traffic, because it just doesn't work, and it won't work because this is more of a long form reading with great, rich content. Pinning, limit your pins to less than 50 a day. You get at 50 and above, the engagement really plateaus off or actually drops. Use the what they call the MDP, which is the Pinterest Marketing Development Partners. Those that are certified. Otherwise, you run risk of just a lot of problems. So just be really careful. If you use a scheduler, use one that's really well integrated and recognized by Pinterest. Also, don't worry so much about when you're pinning throughout the day. That is 8 o'clock better, or is it 9 o'clock better? Really keep it. Test it out. Try it out. Where are you getting engagement? Is it Mondays or Fridays? Is it in the morning, in the afternoon, evening? Try it out. That's the best way you're going to know when your audience is watching or are watching. Okay. Your follower count, when it comes to your within your account, you don't need to worry about that as a really important metric. Of course, it's a little bit of social proof. If you don't really follow a lot of people and you have a lot of followers, that's more of social proof. But don't really go hard and fast by that number. I wouldn't. It's not like it gives you a specific boost or you get certain perks or favors or things like that. When you have or if you see somebody, they don't necessarily get things better interaction, things like that. We also talked about, what was the last couple of things? We talked about group boards. They're fun, they're good. Use them really strategically to get to meet and see maybe some new different types of content as you would then be able to actually pin it to one of your boards. We talked about boards, setups, the numbers. Don't worry about all that. It's not like there's a minimum or a maximum. It's not like that. But what you do, I would say this: be very straightforward with your board setup. Make sure they've got good. I like to do cover art. Put the cover art in. Make sure that the title and the description are very well read. Don't try to skimp on it. Really actually spend the time to do it, because this is where these sometimes are that's the deciding factor on if people are going to follow you or not. So spend your time developing your boards and things like this, because when you have all these other things set up, then you come to the question of whether or not should you be paying for traffic. That if you have not done all those other things, you don't have a good solid base, a good solid foundation, verified with the site, your good title, all these kinds of things. When you go to try to put money into as an investment into your business to get more traffic, it's going to fall flat, because people aren't going to be able to see and feel that they can trust you in your Pinterest board, your Pinterest profile. Okay, so but paid traffic is really a good thing. It's really awesome. It allows you to really get some specific, and with the right now, as of this broadcast, it is actually still one of the cheapest ways to get content to get shared out very quickly by a very broad audience, by a broader reach for an audience than it is, I think, on the other platforms. So with that, I think that's it. And I think what was the and by the way, don't delete your tweet. Don't delete your pins. If you feel that just let them sit. Just let them be in there. They're going to pay off. It's going to give you some credibility and some long term. And the last one I'd wanted to talk about, and I think I had forgotten, but let's talk about this. But you know what? I actually want to talk about this on our channel in the after show. But I want to talk about this using your content. Okay, should it be exclusive for Pinterest? Can you repurpose the same content from other platforms onto Pinterest? What are some rules? What are some guides? I want to talk about that, but let's talk about that in the after show today. So if you guys are watching us on whatever platform you happen to be seeing this, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Blab, or even if you're watching this on a replay in Fire Talk, make sure if you guys really have a question, you guys can follow me and find me. Ask me on Twitter. It really is perfectly okay to ask me a question on Twitter. You can find that it's my name at Jonathan Tripp. It's not a verified account. We're going to work on that. But I do want to say, join me in the after show. You guys can find me, and I do the after shows live as well. They're not usually up for replay, with a few exceptions, but that's live on Fire Talk, firetalk.com. It's an easy way. But if you guys have questions, absolutely shoot me an email, or just even more simply, you can join a part of and be a part of one of our social communities on Facebook. You can find us over at Blab Nation, or on Google Plus over at Google Plus, or the easy way, it's googleplus.jonathantripp.com. That's just the short forwarding link to get you over to that. So I would encourage you guys to be a part of our communities. And if you guys are watching us, don't worry. We're going to be back tomorrow. We do broadcast Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the power of Facebook pixels and what that really means, because honestly, it's really confusing when you don't know what it is. But as a marketer, as a business owner, as somebody that does advertising and things like this, it's something that at least maybe you'll be able to learn a little bit more and understand maybe some of how the power of it works for your business. So join us tomorrow for that. If you're still here live, please join me over on our main on our main channel, and I just want to encourage you to be over there. So with that, guys, we will see you later. Take care.